Empire of Dirt, written by Perilous Platypus. The 37th era of the Jazra Ascendancy concluded with the consignment of humanity to an empire of dirt. The punishment, a direct dictate from the imperial court itself, capped a tumultuous period for the ascendancy largely defined by human resistance. Humanity's desire to remain unincorporated was by no means unusual, though the persistence of that desire, even when the circumstances became dire, were outside of conventional standards. Even when humanity's resources had been diminished to a single planet with no astral forces, humanity continued to refuse incorporation. Their hand forced, the imperial court issued their proclamation, the fourth declaration of an empire of dirt. Enacting the punishment took considerable resources and time. Uprooting humanity from their homeworld, Earth, and re-establishing them as a suitably barren planet took some 16 years by human calendaring. Humanity resisted throughout, resulting in a number of cullings and a final population within the Empire Dirt of under 7 million. The new planet possessed a suitable environment for a baseline existence, and a dearth of minerals and rare earths that would permit human civilization to advance beyond rudimentary technology. Ascendancy forces provided support until self-sufficiency on the new planet was obtained, and then departed in accordance with the dictates of the Imperial Court's issuance. Humanity was provided with the means of contacting the Ascendancy in the event of a supermajority of alive persons over the age of majority elected to incorporate. Ascendancy forces then evacuated the planet, observed it for a period of months, then left local space, sealing all potential warp points and leaving a relay beacon should humanity arrive at its senses and wish to join the astral order. In the prior 3 instances of an empire of dirt, the consigned civilizations ultimately accepted incorporation following a brief period of isolation, typically measured in a low number of years. Stories of the depravity of these periods and the subsequent rehabilitation of these fallen species are often held out as an example of Ascendancy's generosity and inherent superiority. Humanity, for all of its pride, was expected to follow the same pattern. An era passed without a word from humanity. Jezra's ascendancy resolve remained steadfast. Humanity would come to its senses, or it would expire. Another passed. The 40th era of the Jezra ascendancy began with the return of humanity. Captain Tyron Rath sat at the edge of his seat, eyes scanning through charts arrayed in the screens around him. Each chart presented an opportunity, one identified by Central Command as being both likely to still exist and potentially suitable for the ship under Tyron's command. Not that Tyron relied on those projections. A lot could happen in a few thousand years. He idly tapped one of the charts, tracing a finger along a set of jumps, considering a trade-off between destination and fuel. To his sight, Navigator Harley List leaned forward, a grimace on her face. "Not that one," Tyron asked. She shook her head, neat teeth sawing at her lower lip as she considered the charts. "Too safe. We can do better." Her charcoal rattled up and out of her dry throat. "So eager to die. We put so much effort into living." Harley snorted what she thought of that. "This is virgin space. They may not even know we're back yet, not this far out. News travels slower than we do. This may be the best opportunity to do some real damage without bringing in heavier guns." "No, we're heavy enough," Tyron replied, his eyes on Harley. She'd been a green lump when she'd first landed on his ship, but she'd made her way to the navigator's chair faster than anyone else out there. She had an intuitive sense of the relationship between risk, resources, and returning home, one that capitalized the Green Star to the top of the efficiency list. Fuel in the Grimstar guaranteed destruction, and a lot of it. "That is my point. We've got enough to work with." She flicked a disdainful finger at a nearby chart. "We can do better than tapped-out mines and some ice harvesting plant probably shut down a millennia ago. There's bigger game to be had." Tyron leaned back, splaying his hands outward in invitation. "By all means, I am open to suggestions." The last 4 routes were Harley's, and Tyron saw little reason to break the streak, given the successes. Tyron watched her with some amusement as she skittered about between the charts, mumbling to herself as she checked fuel requirements, historic data on the locations, and the armaments on board the Grimstar. She'd make a fine captain someday, assuming they all lived long enough, and she could smooth out some of the edges when it came to other people. "I wish we had some maps from, I don't know, this century." "Ah, just a moment ago you were upset because we weren't maximizing the opportunity of what was it you said? Virgin space," Tyron replied, though he shared the sentiment. Going in with ancient information was in many ways worse than going in with none. At least with none, you didn't have any expectations. You weren't anchored on anything other than caution. Another snort in response. Hardy's preferred language: snorts, snarls, and skeptical stares. Well, at least we'll get some updates for the second wave. I heard our map of Scodius made it different. It was Tyrant's turn to snort. Scodius had been a close thing. A transport hub on the old Imperial star charts had hardened into a sophisticated military base, complete with shipyards and local defences. It had caught the Grimstar by surprise, particularly since their entry point was inside those perimeter defences. They kicked the hornet's nest and gotten out without a sting, but the matter had come down to seconds. Wonder why Scodius went military at all. Doesn't make any sense, Hardy continued. Maybe an uprising not too long ago. Tyrant shrugged. Possibly. Regardless of the reason, we'll need to be more conservative with the jump points. Maybe. Everything on this chart is optimized. We make many changes and we'll dump fuel. And fuel was everything. Fuel was life. Fuel was humanity's future. The entirety of the Grimstar, crew included, was less valuable than the fuel she carried. Humanity's greatest advantage, being able to operate outside the warp gates, would come to a crashing halt if the juice ran out. Mining, refinement, and processing was a constant ongoing affair, but the demand far outstripped the rate of production. Engaging with the ascendancy and functioning of the military operations had placed tremendous stress on the situation. Tyrant wondered, not for the first time, whether they would have even better off waiting for later, stockpiling just a few centuries longer. But the civilian side was close to buckling. 164 million people, even accounting for those in stasis, was too many to be housed aboard ships. Humanity needed a new homeworld, a place that it could properly grow and thrive, not a mud ball the ascendancy had tried to strand them on. Some considered searching for another world that could match Earth's characteristics, but ultimately they were voted down in favor of returnist movement. There was no place like home. Humanity wanted Earth. And it was the Grimstars and every other ship in the fleet's responsibility to make that possible. The ascendancy had been pushed to the limit by humanity once before, and now humanity held the upper hand. The ascendancy would defend while humanity would attack. The entire astral order had been built on the foundation of warp gates, specific apertures that connected two locations in space. But humans were no longer subject to that. They could go where they wanted, so long as they had the fuel. Hardy's finger slammed down on the map. This one. End of story. Story number 2. A Fair Deal, written by Augie74. At a nondescript back alley, a door was opened. A slender individual walked through to the bar and shook the rain off his brown coat. He ignored the sight of hands that had been coming closer and closer to lasguns, dart throwers, and several other devices whose sole purpose was to make perforations in meaty bodies in rapid fashion, stopping and relaxing before their owners returned to their drinks and discussions. The man threw a little up nod at the bartender before settling on a stool. The bartender placed a mug under the tap and filled it, settling it in front of the man. "Malcolm, my favourite drunken lout, what are you doing here?" The reply was a shrug. "Sam, my favourite bartender. Madge just said that you could put a face to a name. Warwick, ring any bells?" "Don't know anyone specifically by that name, but there is a chunky-looking Persephone over there in that booth, I hear. He's been trying to not look like he's going to leave a puddle of piss on the seat when he stands up to leave. Badger say Warwick was new to the streets." "They might have been mentioned. Thanks for the tip." "Speaking of thanks for the tip," Sam tapped the bar meaningfully. Malcolm tossed a couple coins in the bar, making Sam snort. "You're about to become my least favourite drunken lot." Fair pie go. You're gonna hurt my feelings. That's plenty enough to cover the actual beer you put in this mug." Sam's rude gesture was dismissed as Malcolm casually slid into the booth across from Warwick, causing the Pacifian to start. Malcolm took a little drink, partially because he was thirsty, but also because of a sharp aroma that wrinkled his nose. "Hey, you look a little lost, friend. Good news is I can point you at a friend if you're in need. Fella by the name of Badger, scroungy-looking, but always has a nice hat." The Pacifian blinked all 4 eyes as his mind processed what had been said. When he finally spoke, it was the voice of someone waiting for his executioner. Yes, I've met Badger. He said that you have something, You are Malcolm.
If you're a Warwick, I am.
The relaxation was palpable. Please, my need is great. Our ship fuel supplies low on helium-3, and the excise taxes and fees on the Alliance grow every year for fuel certifications and...
Malcolm raised a hand to forestall further explanation. Don't worry, I'm well aware. Me and the Alliance aren't friends. If I'm being honest, humanity and the Alliance aren't keen on each other either. In any event, right now I would like to hear a number in Alliance tons. Then I'm going to tell you a number. That's the credits it'll cost. You agree, I tell you the coordinates, and we meet there in 4 days.
Numbers were duly exchanged. The Pacifian's eyes went wide again. This is 60% of the Alliance rates.
Yep. Pure Jovian H3. No argon molecular stem fillers. You may want to do a slow burn when you get it. Most engines get a 30% kick when they get the real stuff.
But that makes no sense.
Well, at a certain point, bureaucracies exist to justify their own existence. Regulations on top of regulations, stamps to verify purity, and all that got to be verifiable and cross-verifiable across every system. In our case, what that means is about a third of what goes into your tank is molecular stamps and approvals. And if your engine runs worse, dies that much faster, well, then you gotta come back to the fuel depot that much quicker. Fuel depot wins, fuel manufacturer wins, engine manufacturers wins, Alliance wins, everyone wins.
Malcolm paused for another drink.
Well, except you, because you're paying for all of those wins. That's not how we like to do business, and so I just splashed the coordinates at you. See you in 4 days.
That sounds wonderful.
It is, except for one thing. There was a clanging sound. Looks like the feds are doing another raid. Come on, we'll take the back way so that we don't get pinched. Don't worry, Sam will pay this fed squad.
End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.